next is someone who steered the entire Paperflite team from the sidelines for a very long time. And now it's my privilege to welcome him on stage as a speaker. Having danced both the revenue dance from the shoes of both sales and marketing, his story immediately got us hooked. For There and Back Again, it's Marc Amigone. Over to you.
All right. Hi, everybody. How's it going? All right. Sorry, I forgot that this is like, they can't hear me when I say that sort of thing. That's how I'm used to opening up my talks, is asking how everybody's doing. So, all right. Well, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. So I have a few slides, but I'm going to try and just use them as little as possible. And to give you some background for me about first, just kick things off. So I'm Director of Sales at Impact. Impact is a digital sales and marketing agency based in New Haven, Connecticut, but we have employees spread out all over the country, a few in Europe. I'm in the greater Boston, Massachusetts area. I'd love to see in the chat if people could respond where everybody is that's hearing my voice right now. If people can kind of tell me where you are and maybe what role you're in, if you're in marketing, if you're in sales, if you're in product development, anything like that. I'd love to just kind of get a little bit of context for who I'm speaking to. And thanks everybody for being here today. So let's see if anybody can pop in some responses. I'd love to kind of hear who we got on the line. Anybody feel like responding? I don't know. If nobody's gonna do it, I'll keep going. Don't worry. I'm not gonna sit here waiting forever or anything. But
well, I can tell you what I am doing, Marc.
Sure, go for it.
I'm a marketer, so I think I'll kickstart the answers by saying that.
Got it. Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to share my screen here. And all right, let's get started here, guys. Super excited to be here and to share my story with you guys. So as the title of my session says, I've lived on both sides of the sales and marketing divide here. So I'm at Impact now. I'm the director of sales here. I manage a team of 3 people. We're in charge of selling a few different services and products that Impact delivers. Mostly we help businesses grow their business through digital sales and marketing. And we're a HubSpot partner agency, been around since about 2010. And we're pretty established in the space, one of the bigger HubSpot agencies out there. And I'm going to tell you today a little bit about my journey, kind of how I got into where I am, and what that can share with some insights for all of you guys about what I've learned at Impact and my career in sales and marketing. So I wanted to bring up this picture because I think it's a cool kind of articulation of my story. So I graduated university in 2007. And I moved to New York City and I tried to make it as a journalist. I had a writing background, so I thought that's what I wanted to do. And then quickly realized public relations and marketing was a much better and growing field than journalism was. So I started working in marketing back then, little by little, kind of worked my way up, and then had a few different jobs here and there. I moved to Thailand for about 6 months, moved back, and then got my job at HubSpot, where I was an inbound marketing consultant there for a couple of years. So that was really my first foray into digital marketing in a real sense. I learned a ton about SEO and software and all kinds of cool stuff like that. Left HubSpot and ended up at a company called ACIS, which is the American Council for International Studies. And I was on their marketing team, where I was responsible for all of their content marketing, their social media, and was really kind of like in the heart of content marketing world and kind of trying to solve the challenges of lead generation, traffic to the website, that sort of thing. And then a friend of mine took me out to lunch, who I work with at HubSpot, who was working at Impact at the time in the sales team. He was telling me about his experience working in sales. And I was soon to be married and soon to become a dad. I have 2 kids now, and this is about 4 or 5 years ago. And I was thinking to myself, okay, working in sales, I can make more money. I could grow my career in that way. And so took a job at Impact and working in sales. Now I'm the director of sales there. It's been coming up on 4 years working there. So all that to say, to get from one point A to point B has not been a straight line. It has not been, on the left side of your screen. It's been way more kind of this, that, and the other thing and looping around and stuff. And it's been a really interesting journey. I've learned a ton along the way. So what I have pulled up here is some examples of some content that I created when I was at ACIS. So I don't mean to drag ACIS's name through the mud or anything like that, but these are all blog posts or convertible offers that I authored when I was there. So basically, everything you see here is, what I would call, now that I'm at Impact, now that I've learned what I've learned, of fluffy marketing content. When I say fluffy, I mean it generates a lot of traffic and does absolutely nothing to help the sales team. This is the example of what we call out all the time at Impact, as saying what you should not be doing with your content marketing efforts. So if there's anybody hearing my voice right now that is thinking about creating content that's just really catchy and really fluffy and really, buzzworthy, but has absolutely nothing to do with the service that you're selling, please don't do it. It's going to do absolutely nothing. It might generate some traffic to your website, but all that's going to do is make your bounce rate to your website really high. And it's just going to make your sales team roll their eyes at you a lot, which is exactly what happened to me when I went into our sales and marketing meetings and said, hey, everybody, super exciting news. I just published this 17 free recipes ACIS World Cookbook. And they're like, great. What does that have to do with, our target market was teachers. And they would take their students on these trips abroad to Europe and South America and places like that. So I thought, okay, teachers like food. Teachers like things that they can do in their classroom. So, this 5 great music videos for your German class, like that was probably one of our top performing blog posts in terms of traffic. But the amount of people looking, because there's a lot of people searching for that and looking for that content, does not by any stretch mean that those are people with the intent to then purchase our products. There's a huge gap between there that I was not taking into account whatsoever. I was just thinking it like a marketer, and I was thinking, okay, traffic is good. We get as much traffic to our website as possible. We'll worry about converting that traffic into leads and sales later. And I thought, okay, we got all this traffic. Let's put this cookbook up on our website because tons of people will download it. And then tons of people download it and nobody becomes a customer at the end. So there's no real, conversion. There's no intent behind it. So not great. It's not, I would not recommend that as a course of action. So I'm here to tell you, kind of learn from my mistakes, essentially. So I left ACIS and moved to Impact, where I was introduced to the concept of They Ask, You Answer. They Ask, You Answer is a framework. It's a book that's right over, there we go, right over my shoulder right there. It's a book written by a guy named Marcus Sheridan, who's a partner at Impact, and the concept is extremely straightforward. They ask, you answer. Your customers are asking a question, and you answer it in the form of marketing content, whether that's a video, a blog post, an ebook. It gets at the basic philosophies. What is my customer thinking and therefore asking? So if you're taking a they ask, you answer approach to your marketing, you are obsessed with what your customer is thinking. You're obsessed with what they care about, what they're worried about, what they're afraid of. And your job is to be the best and most trustworthy source of information about those things. If you do that, good things will happen in your sales and marketing. That was kind of the experience that Marcus had when he was running a business installing swimming pools in 2008, 2009. So he had this experience, where he basically discovered, he was one of HubSpot's earliest case studies, had this experience, realized if I just answer my customers' questions, good things will happen. And he started doing that and started seeing the traffic to his website go up, started seeing the sales increase. And then he realized there are 5 areas where most people's questions center around. And if he focuses on those, then those are the people that are most serious about buying his product. If they're asking questions about cost, problems, comparison, reviews, and best in class. So we're going to circle back to that a little bit later in terms of the big 5, as we call it. But if that's the basic thing that we weren't doing at ACIS, so we were writing all these fluffy blog posts. We weren't talking about costs. We weren't talking very clearly and directly to explain to people how much something costs and why. We weren't talking about the problems that they're facing. Like if you're evaluating, buying software, if you're evaluating buying professional services, evaluating buying a product, what are the problems associated with it? If you're honest and transparent about what those problems are, people will trust you more and they'll buy from you. Comparisons. If you're comparing one thing to another, it's probably because you're ready to make a purchasing decision. And reviews and best in class, the same thinking there. So the basic truth of the ask and answer is that buyers have changed. We're not in this place where we used to be, where salespeople had all the information, where salespeople were able to just kind of say, well, I know everything and you have to talk to me to get more info. Those days are over. We're in the place now where people have more authority and have more capability of finding information on their own without necessarily having to talk to somebody like me, a salesperson. They can find that information without me, and they prefer to learn as much as they can before having a sales conversation. I mean, think about the last purchase you made and how much you tried to avoid talking to a salesperson before you got into a sales conversation. So people want to do that as much as possible. And the more that they can learn about your product or service before they buy, the more that they'll trust you at the end of the day. The more that you can be transparent and honest, the more they'll trust you, and trust is the foundation of every sale. That's another truth about the ask you answer. 80% of the buying decision has already been made before a prospect talks to a salesperson. That is a study that's been done time and time again. That's just the truth, is that people, if they're going to talk to a salesperson, it's only because they've really exhausted all of their options and they're really, really educated. They're ready to buy, and they're like, okay, answer these few questions for me, and then we'll close the deal. That's the way people like to make purchasing decisions these days. And again, I've mentioned this before, but if our customers or prospects have a question, problem, or concern, we should address it honestly and transparently on our website. That is a statement that somebody doing the Ask Your Answer will make. So I learned about all this working at Impact, and I wish I knew that before when I was a content marketer, because my life would have been very different. The company's success would have been different. My interaction with the sales team would have been very different. It would have been a totally different story. So I want to show you some examples of what the Ask Your Answer looks like in practice. So like I said before, I was starting at the top of the funnel with this super fluffy, blog post about music videos and recipes. But really what I should have been doing is saying, what are the questions people are asking at the bottom of the funnel? People are ready to make a purchase. What are they wondering about and thinking about? So they're thinking about these things, right? How much does something cost? What are the problems associated? How does it compare to one thing to the other? What are the honest reviews of that? And who are the best service providers in the marketplace? That's what they're thinking about. So what does this look like in practice? These are all examples of blog posts from Impact. So we have a service called our Certified Coach Program that says that basically empowers people to become the Ask Your Answer coaches. Number one question everybody asks about this Certified Coach Program is, I get certified, and then how do I make money? That's what every single person, every single sales call we do ends on that question comes up. So we wrote a blog post about it. So we send it to people before our sales calls so that they can say, okay, you're telling me to spend all this money on this coach program. What's in it for me? Like, read that blog post before you talk to me so that we don't have to have this conversation in the sales call, and you can learn on your own time. Same thing with, how is Impact different from other agencies? That's a huge question that comes up all the time in our sales process. Our sales team uses that content all the time. HubSpot versus Marketo. If you're serious about buying HubSpot, you're probably evaluating Marketo, which is one of their main competitors. Lots and lots of things like that. So I think my camera just shut off for a second. Can you guys see me okay? All right. Sorry, I should have known that was going to happen. All right, are we back? Okay, we're good. Sorry about that. Quick, brief break in the action there. Can everybody see me okay? Okay, cool. So anyway, long and short of it is, guys, at the end of the day, you want to be honest, you want to be transparent about what you're going to be doing to help people and answer their questions. And that's the only way you're ever going to build trust. By trying to kind of game the system, so to speak, is not going to do you any good. Another thing that I want to show you guys is, this is some screenshots from what we call our buyer's guide. This is something, before anybody that has this conversation with somebody on my team, we send them this. This is the Impact Buyer's Guide. So this basically shows you what you need to know before you're going to have a sales conversation. So we're trying to knock out all the basic questions. Anything that you might be wondering about that's going to come up, like how much our services cost, what they entail, are you a good fit or a bad fit? We send this to them before the call, and if they don't read this buyer's guide before the call, we don't do the call. We cancel the call and say, hey, you didn't do the homework. We call that assignment selling. That's one of the major facets of the Ask Your Answer. And we use a really cool tool to do that assignment selling called Paperflite. So we're definitely a big fan of Paperflite at Impact. But basically, that's something for anybody out there that is in working in marketing or sales. That's something you guys should think about, is what are the things that every single person's going to ask about in every single sales call. They're always going to want to know cost. They're going to want to know all the things that are the basic questions. And if you can say, hey, we've got a call coming up at Wednesday at 1 o'clock. It's Tuesday now. I want you to take 20 minutes, read this buyer's guide, and then we'll have a more efficient and productive conversation on Wednesday. One of two things is going to happen. They're going to read that and say, wow, this is useful information. I feel like I get it. Now I can just dive into the meat of the conversation. Or they're going to say, wow, you guys are way more expensive than I thought than fits on my budget. We don't need to have this conversation. There's no way we're ever going to work with you. No salesperson in the planet wants to talk to somebody who doesn't have the money to buy their service. So the more that you can be upfront with people and be honest about what your pricing entails, the better everybody is going to be throughout the transaction. We've also published this page, this impactplus.com/compare, which is basically trying to be an honest assessment of who we are as a marketing agency and how we compare to other marketing agencies and what they're going to do to, if you're evaluating us, like, let's be honest. this is who we're a good fit for, this is who we aren't. If you want to work with us, then make sure you take all this information into account. Sorry, guys, I'm really screwing up with the technology here. All right, moving forward here. Where was I? This is a few examples of the of some of our clients and what they're doing with the Ask You Answer and the Big Five. So these are some examples of people who manufacture metal roofs, some a home improvement company. This is a pricing software company called PriceFX. Just a few examples here just to show you guys what it looks like in practice to implement the Ask You Answer. This is one, a architecture firm that has an article that explains the factors that influence how much it costs to work with an architect. You know, because it's complicated. Not every pricing conversation is an easy one. Sometimes it's a little complicated to say, well, it could cost this much or it could cost that much. And that's not always an easy conversation to have quickly. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be having the conversation. All right. So how do you get to this point? How do you get to the point where you're having the sales and marketing teams are talking to each other? We talk about the concept of a revenue team. We talk about how it's not just marketing serving sales or sales serving marketing. There's a way to facilitate these conversations so we're all working on the same team. It's all one team called a revenue team. That's something that we at Impact help our clients do, is to form these revenue teams. So you're not getting these conversations where the marketing team is saying, well, we're working on this today and it's going to be so great. And the sales team is thinking, yeah, whatever. Like, you guys are just wasting everybody's time. I could actually use a marketing team that's going to do this for me. And the marketing team isn't thinking to themselves, man, the sales team complains all the time. All they ever do is just complain and say they don't have enough assets to help them succeed. Why don't they just, do their job and stop complaining? If you work together in the right way, if you start to facilitate the conversation between those two teams, that's something I've learned from being on both sides of the equation. That's when you can really make magic happen with sales and marketing. And now, when the marketing team at Impact, when they publish some new content that is really, useful in the sales process and answers one of our buyers' questions because they asked us what questions we're getting, and they said, okay, great, I'm going to go write a blog post about it. Our sales team jumps for joy when a new content gets published because we know it's going to help us in our sales team. It's not just another fluffy piece that we're just like, whatever, marketing is doing their marketing thing. Doesn't have anything to do with us. Like, that's not how we operate at Impact. And that's not how our clients operate, because we use the Ask You Answer as a framework, and we facilitate that conversation between our two teams. If you want to learn a little bit more about our case studies, I didn't want to put tons and tons of slides in here. My job today is not to sell anybody on Impact. If anybody wants to work with Impact, obviously that's great. But I just put a link to impactplus.com/real-results. If you want to check out some more examples of companies that are doing the Ask You Answer really well, what results they've seen, you can go to their websites, look at their blog, look at their YouTube channels to get an idea of how they're operating. Hopefully it gives you guys some inspiration. Again, I'm not here to sell everybody on Impact. I'm really just, my main goal here today is to think about, what are your buyers thinking? What are your buyers' questions? How can you answer them? And if you do that effectively and get your sales team to buy into that process, the sales and marketing relationship is going to be all that much stronger. For anybody that's interested in implementing this sort of thing at your company, Impact has an online learning community called Impact Plus. It's a really, really great tool. There's a free version and a paid version. There's a community aspect to it. So you can learn from a lot of other people, a lot of content managers and executives and HubSpot evangelists that are all doing all kinds of cool things with digital marketing, and take some free courses to learn more about this stuff. That's the easiest way to get involved with this whole Ask You Answer thing, is to sign up for an account with Impact Plus. And then also, if anybody wants to send an email to unmute@impactplus.com, that we'll get back to you with some resources that will help you guys out to execute on the Ask You Answer. That's what we do at Impact. Our goal is to create it. Our mission as a company at Impact is to have 10,000 companies all over the world doing the Ask You Answer well. And if anybody wants to send an email to unmute@impactplus.com, we'll send you over some free resources that you can share with your company, and hopefully you guys will see some awesome success like a lot of more successful clients have. So that's all I have for today. I'm happy to answer any questions or to give you guys any feedback. If anybody wants to drop a link to their website, I'd be happy to give you some feedback right here today, or you can email that email address, we can do it that way too. But really excited to be here and really appreciate you guys having me.
What an incredible session, Mark. Thank you so much for being at Unmute. And we do have a couple questions from the audience. So I want to kick it off by asking, what was your biggest challenge when you transitioned from marketing to sales?
That's a great question. So I would say the biggest thing I struggled with when I moved from marketing over to sales is just basically, I knew how to speak the language. I was selling to marketers. Most of the people I sell to are marketing directors or marketing leaders or business owners that at least have a working knowledge of marketing. And so I could speak their language. I know exactly the challenges. I could point things out to them that they may not be thinking about. That was all the easy part. The difficult part was asking for the money, to be honest with you, was the closing conversations. It's a little bit uncomfortable. It's difficult to challenge people and to make the ask at the end of the day. But honestly, once I learned how to do that, it was all downhill from there. I think if you're going to transition into sales, it's good to be selling something that you have a subject matter expertise built up in already. So for me, I was selling marketing services, and I'd spent the last X amount of years as a marketer and as a marketing consultant. So that made the transition a lot easier. But it's just a different kind of conversation when you're selling. You have to push people, and you have to challenge people, and you have to ask them for things. So it's a little different.
Mm-hmm. Right, perfect. I mean, it's interesting you mentioned that you're selling to marketers, Mark. So when you're doing that, what are the kind of metrics that you track?
Sure. So in terms of the metrics for my team, we track the number of people that they're talking to on a weekly basis, like how many sales conversations are they having, how many people are they reaching out to. We look at kind of the different stages of the sales funnel. So how many people are on their website, how many of those people are converting into leads. Of those leads, how many are actually validated leads? Like how many have turned into real sales conversations, as opposed to just kind of, again, we can get 1 million people to download some recipe book, but like, are any of those people going to end up spending the money that it takes to work with impact? Probably not, So we want to really track the people that are legit, that are valuable opportunities for the sales team, not just people that are going to waste their time.
Mm-hmm. Love that answer, Mark. And as marketing counterparts, how do you think we can do better to support our sales colleagues?
I think the biggest thing, and I don't think it's necessarily marketing's job to support sales or sales job to support marketing. I think we need to work together and see ourselves as all on the same team. And I think it all starts with goals at the end of the day. I think that if marketing has a bunch of goals and KPIs that are just, tied to traffic or leads or things that may look like they're really promising. So let's say that your traffic is, up 500% month over month, but all you did was publish some blog article that catches a lot of traffic and then has like a close to 100% bounce rate, then that's not going to help the sales team. Like if the marketing team is putting all their effort into things that are going to end up with vanity metrics, then that's just going to engender kind of bad blood, so to speak, between marketing and sales. So I think if you start with the same goals and you say, okay, we as a revenue team all have the same goal, which is to drive X amount of revenue for the company, what's going to create that effect? And then, kind of working together to accomplish your goals that way, as opposed to saying, well, marketing has their goals, sales has their goals. That's the starting point of a difficult relationship.
Mm-hmm. Perfect, Mark. And it's interesting you said that both marketing and sales should be aligned on the revenue metric. But were there any challenges when you try to accomplish that at Impact?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so at Impact, we have we always have a lot of irons in the fire. We're kind of an innovative group in terms that we're always trying to kind of push the envelope. So we launched Impact Plus, our online learning community. We also have our services that we deliver, and then we have our coaching certification program. So there's always multiple challenges to be met at the same time. So gaining alignment from leadership can sometimes be difficult, but that's where that's where working with this framework is really useful. It's basically saying, okay, let's start with goals, work backwards from there, and then just trying to ensure that we're all on the same team. We're all working together. It's simple but not easy is kind of the thing that we tell our clients a lot of the time, is that it's not complicated to kind of say, okay, we just need to start with goals and work together. But it's not always easy to just kind of wave a magic wand and do it, so to speak.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I think you touched upon content, Mark. So my question now is, how do you educate your target audience during the awareness stage? What are the content formats? What are the different content formats that marketers and salespeople can employ there?
Sure. So we're huge fans of video at Impacts. We try to use it in our sales process as much as possible. We use one-to-one video tool called Vidyard, which allows you to just really easily create video content. There's other tools out there like Wistia is another great software platform that has a one-to-one video platform aspect to it as well. Between videos, blog posts, and then longer form PDFs like an ebook or a buyer's guide, those are the things that we focus on in terms of like what our sales team uses, what we go to our marketing team to ask for, what they create for us, and that we end up using in the sales process. I think I think for the marketers on the call, the thing that I would encourage you guys to do is to ask your sales team, so what would make your life easier? Like what are the questions you're getting on a call in, call out basis? And how can we create you content that you're actually going to use? And then the sales team needs to do their part and actually use it. If the marketing is going to go through all the trouble to say, okay, we asked you what you wanted, we gave it to you, then the sales team needs to do their part and be a good teammate and kind of hold up their end of the bargain. But I think the marketing team needs to kind of treat marketing, or the marketing team needs to treat the sales team almost like a customer and say, like, what's their, like you do be doing kind of user behavioral testing, or kind of like that, like if you're thinking people are visiting our website and doing this, so we need to kind of adjust in order to get the behavior we want from our target audience, we need to make these changes. Like you can kind of think of it similarly with sales and marketing. If the sales team isn't doing what you want them to be doing, then you can influence that in different ways. So
Perfect, Mark. Now I have a very interesting question that I'm curious to hear your answer as well. What is the biggest myth that was broken when you transitioned from marketing to sales?
The biggest myth? That's a really good question. I would say, I think the thing is that salespeople get a bad rap. I think that I try not to think of myself as the most typical salesperson that all they care about is money and that they're not willing to put in any work. Like there's a lot of on either side of the divide, right? There's conceptions that people have. Like salespeople think all marketing wants to do is take on these little creative projects and that don't really drive revenue. And then marketing people think, oh, salespeople are lazy and they only care about money and they're going to want to do the least amount of work to get the job done and that sort of thing. And I think there's an underlying truth beneath both of those things. I think that the more that we talk to each other, and this is truism about life, the more that we talk to each other, the more we realize that these kind of artificial facades that we put them in our minds about people, once you actually start talking to them, then you realize that they're not actually true and that we have more in common than we think we do. So, not that I want to get into anything too deep here today, but that's the idea. It's like that if we start talking to each other and working together, it makes the world a better place in all kinds of ways, not just creating sales and marketing alignment.
Fantastic answer, Mark. You mentioned facades and bringing down facades. So how do you think teams across the globe can help marketing and sales function together more effectively and bring down any walls that are there in between them?
Yeah, I think the first thing is it's an organizational thing. It's like a company-wide organizational thing of stopping to see themselves as two separate teams and starting to put themselves on the same team, and then measuring your goals from there. Essentially, I think there are other things that you can do with the way sales and marketing people are compensated is usually pretty different. Like there's kind of most salespeople work on commission, most marketing people don't. In my sales career, I haven't always been on commission. And I think that creates it's interesting in how it creates certain incentives and doesn't create other incentives. And I think that's something that, people can explore as well. Does it make sense to put marketing and sales on the same commission plan, or take them both off commission plan? Or, if there's competing incentives and competing factors at play there, that can also get in the way of progress.
Fantastic answer, Mark. And with that, we've kind of wrapped up this session. Thank you so much for being there at Unmute, Mark. It was a pleasure hosting you here today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.